We've been talking about dieting and the diet industry and body dissatisfaction. And I want to move to the other side for a little bit. And so sometimes I have students in the course that want to know, how can I maintain my weight for health conditions, or they're suffering from type 2 diabetes and have been told by a doctor that they need to lose weight, and they want to know how to do that in a healthy way. So that is today's topic. So if you go to the doctor, one of the things that they will do is get your weight and get your height. And one of the standard things that you do when you walk into your general practitioner. And the reason they do that is they are trying to calculate your BMI. Now, there are a lot of BMI calculators out there. You can just Google it and type your weight and height in, and it will tell you what your BMI is if you don't already know. This is a number that is calculated from a formula based on your weight and your height. It's been around for about 200 years. There are actually a lot of critics of this formula because what it does not take into account is your percentage body fat versus your percentage of lean tissue, genetic composition, where you hold your fat, where you hold your weight. This is just a number that's a calculation from your weight and your height. And so it's not perfect, but it's still widely used in the United States by medical doctors because it's easy. All you have to do is plug in the weight and height into a formula, and you get some level of risk of overweight and obesity, which is then connected to a number of health conditions, right? So if you're classified as overweight or obese, puts you at risk for a number of health conditions, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, etc. And so it's quick and easy, but know that it is not perfect, and it has had a lot of criticism. And there are probably better ways that we could do this, but this is quick and easy, so it's what we've got right now. So causes of obesity. So I've talked about this before in this class, and I want to really hone in on this again. So we've talked about how plate sizes increased over the 1900s, so where we are today. And so as a result, of course, our caloric intake also increased from about 1,850 calories to 2,000 calories per day over the last 20 years. And some have argued that that's continuing to increase, and those numbers are going to continue to go up. And so just keep in mind, we'll talk about this more today, that's a difference of about 150 calories a day, which is estimated to add about an extra 15 pounds per year if you're eating more than you need to maintain whatever weight that you're currently in. And so the problem, I'm sure you've seen childhood campaigns to end obesity. Michelle Obama's thing when Obama was in office was her campaigns to end childhood obesity. I'm sure you've seen reports coming out of the CDC and some of our top agencies, American Heart Association, Diabetes Association, American Cancer Society, all kind of warning that our obesity numbers are continuing to rise in the US, and this is a problem. But a lot of times they don't say why. So what's causing us to become more obese as a society, both in childhood and in adults? And so it's been termed by psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists as the fact that we live in what's called an obesogenic environment. So not only are our plate sizes and our portion sizes increasing, we have differential access to foods. There are some neighborhoods that have no easy access to a grocery store. They may have a fast food restaurant, they may have a convenience store, and so we don't all have a Fred Meyer or an Albertsons or a Winco or what have you within walking distance. And so that can cause differential access to healthy foods. Fast food is everywhere, and it's really easy and cheap often to eat unhealthy foods. Ramen noodles are a great example of this. We've talked about that before. And so it's, you can get them on sale, sometimes 10 for $1, and it's great if you're a bargain hunting college student. But the nutrition of the ramen noodle may not be what your body actually needs, right? Because it's not a nutrient-dense food. We're not as physically active as we used to be. We drive everywhere. We don't walk everywhere. We're no longer an agrarian society where most of us are spending our days in the field or we're hunting and gathering. We're sitting. We're sitting a lot in our cars, on our couches, watching TV, playing video games, movies, whatever it is we're doing with a lot of sitting. So lack of physical activity, technology. And I think COVID is really, this pandemic has really made that abundantly clear. Our technology is great. We don't have to leave our house. The problem is we don't have to leave our house. And so again, we're not physically active. We're not moving around. You may have seen in the news, things talking about the quarantine 15. People have been putting weight on in the past year because so many of us have been at home since the COVID pandemic started shutting states down over a year ago. So if you are trying to maintain a healthy weight or lose weight, I want to talk about how to do that. And I want to talk about some of the things that we know in your biology and in your environment that can help or harm. So the obesogenic environment is obviously a huge environmental factor for a lot of people that is causing us to gain weight because we just don't have access to healthy foods. We don't know how to eat them. We don't know how to cook. There's a lot of things out there. There are some things you can do, right? You can watch cooking shows. You can learn how to purchase and prepare your own meals, but that assumes, again, you've got access to a grocery store that has good, healthy foods for you to purchase. You have the finances to do so. You have a kitchen to cook in, right? So a lot of environmental factors that are not in your control. But if you're trying to maintain healthy weight and you do have the environment, or at least enough within your control that you can begin to play with cooking and eating more healthy food, I want you to go about it in a safe way. So we've talked about dieting. There's a lot of unhealthy diets out there that will promise you can lose 10 or 20 pounds a week. Please don't do that. Safe weight loss, depending on how much you have to lose, is usually 1 to 2 pounds per week, sometimes even less. Sometimes we're talking about half a pound per week. Because A, it's healthier, and B, we know from decades of research that the faster the weight's lost, the more likely and quickly it is to come back when you go off of that diet. Because a lot of times those extreme weight loss diets, they're just not sustainable. They weren't meant to be lifestyle choices. They weren't meant to be permanent fixes. And so when you go off of that, and we'll talk about why in just a minute, then your body kind of rebels and you put the weight back on. So I want to talk for a moment about biology. So we've talked about some of the hormones involved in our digestive processes, but another big factor with biology, with genetics, is the set point theory. And this is the notion that we all have an internal set point for our weight, for our body fat levels, and our body does, it's a range, it's not an exact number, but the idea is that our body is comfortable with that, and it will do pretty much whatever it takes to maintain that weight or percent of body fat. Now, you can change your set point, so I don't want you to feel like you're doomed, but know that it is a lot easier to increase your set point than it is to decrease your set point. So you're really fighting biology when you're trying to lose weight or percentage of body fat at a level below what your body is comfortable with. And so that can be a source of great frustration if you feel like you're trying to lose weight and the scale is not budging, or you're trying to lose body fat and the scale is not budging. Part of that may just be genetics. Again, a lot of it's environmental. We do have some control over this and you can change it, but just know that it's going to take some work. And I want you to go about it in a healthy way. So let's talk about weight loss diets and how biology kind of plays in with that. So according to the set point theory, early on in a diet, your caloric deficit, right, so you're eating fewer calories, results in weight loss from fat stores being burned and loss of body water. Because a lot of times when we clean up our diet, we decrease our sodium intake, and so we actually are losing body weight from water as opposed to anything else, just because we've gotten rid of that sodium. Also, some fat stores from the glycogen depletion of you eating fewer calories. However, again, your body is fighting you on this because it wants to stay at that set point. So eventually the hypothalamus detects changes in fat stores and it will decrease your basal metabolic rate because it's trying to hold on to all of the fat that it possibly can, and it wants to replenish any lost fat. So again, fighting against that set point. So just kind of give you an idea. If you go on a food-restricted diet, what happens over time, about a weekend, your body starts to wise up and it's like, whoa, 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 something's going on here and we don't like it. And so your BMR actually starts to decrease. And so for extreme weight loss diets over a very long period of time, your BMR may actually decrease by up to 50%. So just be aware that, of course, your BMR is the amount of calories your body needs just to function. And so if your BMR was, let's say, 1800, and over time, because you've been calorie restricting and not exercising, we'll get to that in a minute, your BMR has decreased. And so now maybe your body only needs 1600 calories to maintain its function, right? Our body's really good at doing what it does. And so as your BMR is decreasing, what happens is your lipoprotein lipase, or LPL, which controls how and where we deposit fat, the activity skyrockets, which actually promotes fat storage, so that when you are eating, your body's trying to convert those calories to fat. Leptin, remember that one from earlier on in the course. That's our I'm full hormone. So leptin levels decrease when your fat stores diminish, so you never feel full and you always feel hungry. So again, that's just biology. That's your body trying to hold on to all of the fat that it possibly can. So as you can imagine, and you may have personally experienced this, you'll reach a weight loss plateau because your BMR has slowed down. And so now you're actually not eating fewer calories than your body needs. You're eating the amount of calories your body needs. And so you got frustrated because you've stopped losing weight. You lose motivation. We've talked about the what the hell effect, the guilt, the dieting. We return to our old eating habits, only now our BMR is lower than it was. And so if you go back to eating 1800 calories per day or 2000 calories per day, and your BMR is now 1600 calories per day, guess what? That weight's going to pile back on, and it's going to pile on very quickly. Now, your BMR will gradually increase as you start to eat more, but it's at about the same rate that it decreased, right? And so again, you'll level off with the weight gain, but by the time it takes you to do that, you've already gained the weight, right? So again, very, very frustrating if you've ever tried a weight loss diet. So the professional dieter, right? We've talked about this before, the yo-yo dieting, the professional dieting cycle. So weight ends up being regained at a much faster rate than it was lost because of the what the hell effect. We go off the diet, we eat more than we were beforehand, and now our BMR is low. And so it's we get frustrated. So unethical to do these extreme studies in humans, but animal studies have suggested that it takes about twice the time to lose weight on the second attempt and a third of the time to regain it. And so if you're repeatedly doing this, they're repeatedly going on these really restrictive low-calorie diets where your body is literally starving and you're always hungry, faster and more significant lowering of the BMI. Again, as much as up to 45 to 50% if you're really, really calorie restricting. So how do you do this? I don't want you to feel like if you're trying to lose weight that it can't happen. So this is just stuff that we've talked about before. It's a lifestyle change. You know, it's learning to eat whole foods, healthy foods, learning how to cook and prepare your own meals, buying a lot of fruits and veggies. It's the plate. It's the plant-based diet with a healthy dose of protein in there from whatever that means for you. And making sure that you are not eating a ton of processed food. You're eating food that your body recognizes as food. Stay active to avoid the drops in metabolism. We'll get to that in a minute. Don't lose too much too fast, right? So kind of rule of thumb is if you divide your weight by 100, That's about how many pounds you can expect to lose or gain in a healthy way each week. So if you weigh 200 pounds, then divide that by 100, you get 2, right? That's about the amount of pounds you can expect to lose or gain each week. So how do we do that? It's a combination of decreasing calories and increasing your activity level. So just to give you an idea, 500 calories per day by 7, that's 3,500 calories, which is the equivalent of 1 pound. So if you burn an additional 500 calories a day, you'll lose 1 pound a week. If you're consuming an additional 500 calories a day, you'll gain 1 pound a week. So you can see why it takes so long, and we're telling you to do this in a really slow way. 3,500 calories is a lot of calories, and we don't want you to just stop eating because that doesn't work, right? Because that decreases your metabolism and it's super unhealthy. So let's talk about exercise, talk about movement. So we've looked at what happens when you're not moving and how your BMR can decrease. So one of the ways you increase your BMR is by moving. So how does this work? Exercise, depending on what you're doing, can increase muscle mass, which increases your BMR. Part of the reason metabolism slows as we age is we're not moving. We tend to decrease muscle mass, both for natural reasons and because we're not engaging in muscle building activities anymore. Enzymatic changes that promote lipolysis or fat loss. Again, exercise can help that LPL. It can offset that process from happening, so your body's not trying to hold on to all the fat as you're trying to lose weight. But you got to switch up your workout to keep your body guessing. If you do the same thing all the time, just like with calorie deprivation and your BMR decreasing, your body gets used to the same thing. So don't just walk for 15 minutes every day. Eventually it'll work at first, but it's not going to work forever. You got to change it up a little bit. Okay, so kind of give you an idea. So if you're trying to lose weight and you're doing a combination of both calorie restriction and exercise, and again, in a way that's healthy, so maybe it's 250 calories a day of one and 250 of the other, whatever it may be for you. Days 1 through 3, most of your weight loss is still, again, going to be water because oftentimes we're cleaning up our diet. And what we're actually seeing is the sodium difference in the sodium content that's releasing water. We're not having as much salt in our diet anymore, so our body's releasing water, and that's why we're losing weight. But as we move throughout, as long as you're exercising, then you're going to see a higher percentage of body fat being lost, and we stop losing water weight. And we're still going to lose a little bit of protein, a little bit of muscle mass. Even if you increase your protein intake, you're still going to lose a little bit of muscle mass, but predominantly fat if you're going to combine a little bit of weight loss via caloric restriction with exercising more. And again, doing this in a healthy way, no more than maybe half a pound for you, depending on how much weight you have to lose. So we need to be very, very careful and also realistic about how much weight we're trying to lose at one time. So in sum, set a realistic goal. It's not 10 pounds a week. It's half a pound, it's 1 pound, maybe 2 pounds at the most. Determine what's healthy for you. Determine what a healthy weight is for you. And keep in mind your bone build. Keep in mind genetics, right? Like we talked about this before. If you're large boned, you're never going to be small boned, right? So there's things that you cannot control, and your weight's never going to be that of a small boned person. And so find a healthy weight for you. Whether you're trying to gain or lose weight, keep in mind your muscle mass, your body fat percentage, your bone build. What's healthy for you? Like, what are you actually trying to achieve, and is it something that's achievable? And nutrition labels, right? Really important to know what you're eating and focus on the whole foods as much as possible and the fruits and veggies. And don't forget to move.